Okay, let's talk about lake houses. For most people, they bring up images of peace, maybe quiet, just an escape.
Right, a sanctuary.
But sometimes, that isolation, it can turn into something else, something really unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're going to tell some stories. These accounts were shared by a listener, actually, and they come from excerpts of a YouTube transcript. They detail 3 separate incidents, experiences at lake houses that were, they were a long way from peaceful getaways.
It's interesting how those places we link with relaxation, with safety, can suddenly become scenes of, intense fear. Lakes, especially, with that isolation. It just amplifies things.
It really does. So our goal today is to walk through these accounts together. We'll pull out the details that make them so unnerving and kind of explore the chilling questions they leave behind.
Yeah, it's often the unanswered questions that stick with you.
Exactly. This isn't about solving mysteries, not really. It's more about understanding the experiences people reported and the feeling, that stays with them after. All right, let's start with the first one. This story involves someone who'd just gone through a pretty tough divorce.
Right, needing a break.
Totally. Needed a reset, somewhere quiet, far away from all the chaos. His girlfriend, Christina, actually suggested it. So they found this rental, upstate New York, on a lake, booked it for a week, dead of winter.
Oh, wow, winter. So properly isolated.
Yeah, the description sounded perfect. Modern, cozy, right on the lake, woods all around. Most of the other houses, empty. It wasn't peak season, which they kind of liked.
Makes sense. More privacy.
Plus, heavy snow had been falling since they got there. It created this, incredibly beautiful, untouched landscape, just white everywhere.
That deliberate seeking of isolation, though, wanting to disconnect, it really sets the stage. It makes you feel even more exposed when something unexpected happens. You sort of put yourself outside the normal safety nets.
Right. And things got a little weird almost immediately. When they arrived, there was a package just sitting on the front steps.
Okay.
No return address, just a handwritten note. Said something like, "Enjoy your stay, stay warm."
A bit odd.
And inside, just a small box of matches. That's it. They kind of brushed it off, figured it was a weird welcome gift. Maybe the host was quirky. Christina apparently joked about it.
A small thing, easily dismissed at the time. But looking back, you can see how significant that becomes. It's the first hint someone knew they were there, even before they'd properly arrived.
Exactly. So the next couple of days were just what they wanted. Hiking, quiet time by the fire, total peace. Snow kept falling. Picture perfect, really. He mentions the master bedroom specifically, 2nd floor. Huge windows looking right out over the lake. Said the windows, or maybe the roof, were thin enough you could actually hear the snowflakes hitting.
Oh, that's quite evocative.
Yeah, he found it really soothing. There was a skylight, too. Just this peaceful bubble.
Those sensory details, hearing the snow, the big view, they really ground you in that feeling of peace. It makes what comes next even more jarring, doesn't it? That safe, quiet space is felt so strongly right before it's violated.
And that's exactly what happens. The peace just shatters. Sometime after midnight, 3rd night there, he wakes up, there's a sound.
Okay.
Barely audible at first over the wind and the snow. The storm had picked up like a proper blizzard now. But this sound, it was definitely man-made, mechanical.
Not the wind then?
No. He gets up really quietly, goes to that big window, looks out, and he sees it. A snowmobile. Moving slowly across the frozen lake.
On the lake. In a blizzard.
Yeah.
After midnight.
Yeah. Late visibility, terrible, but he could see it, moving cautiously.
Okay, that's immediately wrong. A snowmobile on a frozen lake, sure. In winter.
Yeah.
But that late, in those conditions, moving slowly like that.
Yeah.
It feels off. It feels like intent, not just someone out for a joyride.
Precisely. And then the driver stops, gets off the snowmobile, starts waving their hands like they're in distress, maybe shouting towards the house, you couldn't quite tell. And that's when this, chilling thought hits him. Did they know they were there? How could they? But they looked like they needed help. You can't just ignore someone who looks like they're in trouble in a blizzard.
No, you can't. That immediate human reaction, seeing distress, especially in bad weather,
Yeah.
it often just overrides caution. Your instinct is to help.
So he wakes Christina, tells her what's going on. They both get dressed, and he steps out onto the deck. Freezing. Absolutely brutal cold.
Okay.
As he gets a bit closer to the edge of the deck, he sees it's a woman driving the snowmobile. She starts shouting something like, "Thank God someone's there." Claims she lost her little boy in the storm. Sounds completely hysterical.
Oh, wow. A child.
Yeah. For him, in that moment, there's no question. A kid lost in a blizzard, you have to help instantly. So he laces up his boots, tells Christina firmly, stay inside, and heads down towards the ice.
Understandable reaction.
As he's getting closer to her on the ice, he starts noticing details. She's wearing this thick fur coat, her hair is in a tight braid. He also notices the ice seems really solid where they are, no chance of falling through. He actually starts to feel a bit of relief thinking about the kid.
Right, focused on the potential rescue.
But then, she shifts her story. Suddenly, she says the boy ran away from home and she was out looking for him. And that makes him pause.
That's the moment. That's the first real crack in the story she's telling. A kid running away is very different from one falling off a snowmobile, especially in a blizzard. The narratives don't match the supposed emergency.
Exactly. The adrenaline starts to clear a bit, and he's thinking, how odd is this news story? How do you not notice your kid running away from home on a snowmobile in a blizzard? It doesn't make sense.
No, it really doesn't.
So he's standing there, just about to maybe ask for more details, ask what the boy looks like, when she says something that just makes his blood run cold. She asks him, quote, if I still got those matches.
Oh, the matches. The package. A welcome gift.
It all clicks instantly. The package, the note, she left it, not the host. She knew they were there all along.
Oh my God.
Oh.
That connects everything in the most terrifying way.
And before he can even react, really process it, she pulls out a gun,
Wow.
demands his wallet and phone. He just gives them to her. What else could he do? He said the whole thing was incredibly fast, like under 30 seconds from the question about the matches to her having his stuff.
The speed of it, after such an elaborate setup, it's jarring. It reinforces how unsettling it is. Was robbery always the only goal, or was the distress part of something else, something even darker?
Right. Then she just climbs back onto the snowmobile, turns, and disappears into the whiteout. Doesn't say another word. He just sprints back to the house, screaming for Christina to call 911.
Just leaves him there on the ice.
Yeah. Back inside, Christina's on the phone with the police. He's running around, locking everything, pacing, shaking, half expecting her to come back, maybe try to get in the house.
The fear must have been immense.
The police finally show up, maybe about an hour later. By then, fresh snow has covered everything. Any tracks are gone. Christina's hysterical. He's just furious, angry. He came there for peace, you know.
Understandably.
The police search around. They find an old boat ramp on the far side of the lake. Guess maybe she came from there. He's insisting they keep looking, find her, but they basically say the snow makes it impossible. His phone. Offline. Untraceable.
Frustrating, helpless feeling.
The Airbnb host refunds the trip, sounds genuinely shocked, denies sending any package, seems sincere. But the whole thing, it just doesn't add up for him. How did she know they were there? Why go to such insane lengths? Snowmobile, frozen lake, blizzard, fake distress story, just for a wallet and a phone, it seems. Wildly disproportionate.
That imbalance, the effort versus the apparent payoff, is often a key feature of these deeply unsettling events. It wasn't just a robbery. It feels like an elaborate violation of their safety, their sanctuary.
He couldn't shake the suspicion, even wondered if the host was involved, or maybe even his ex-wife, though he admits that sounds paranoid. But the sheer lack of sense, the lack of clear motive for something so bizarre and risky, it just hangs there. He kind of concludes maybe she was just, quote, seriously messed up in the head and got some kind of sick pleasure out of it.
And that might be the most disturbing possibility. That disproportionate effort, the targeting, the psychological impact of being lured out under false pretenses of helping someone, especially in such an isolated place, it's far more damaging than just losing your stuff. It leaves you questioning everything, everyone. Your own judgment.
It really does. That feeling of a safe space being violated. Yeah, that seems to run through these accounts. Okay, let's move to the second story. This one is set at a family-owned lake house, Northern California.
Okay, different setting.
Yeah. The person telling this story says they'd visit maybe a couple of short weeks a year, usually in the summer. It's a 2-story house, has an attic. He remembers when he and his younger sister were kids, they used to climb up into the attic, pretend they were camping out, look out the window at the lake.
So positive childhood memories tied to the place.
Yeah.
Space of imagination, safety.
Definitely. Then later, their grandparents passed away, and their parents inherited a bunch of furniture. The attic kind of became storage for the smaller antique items, things they couldn't bear to part with. He says it felt bittersweet, putting their grandparents' stuff up there, but also kind of reassuring, like little pieces of their family were still sort of watching over them. That whole period, he says, felt like the end of his childhood. As he and his sister got older, college, work, it got harder for the family to get out there. Maybe 1 week a year, tops.
Common story.
And his parents didn't want to rent it out. They were worried about damage to the antiques, so the house just sat empty most of the time, just kept up by landscapers.
Right, preserving the past, but also dealing with the present. And that emptiness, it creates its own kind of vulnerability, doesn't it?
It does. Then, a few years back, they met this guy, a local elderly veteran. He is an antique restorer. They ended up signing a year-long lease with him. They trusted him.
Oh, okay, so they let someone in.
Yeah. The narrator describes him pretty vividly. Small guy, apparently disfigured in some way, white hair, a gruff, greasy beard, gravelly voice. He says the kids, him and his sister, found him kind of bizarre, off-putting.
But the parents were okay with him.
Well, his dad really bonded with the guy over his military background, told the kids they didn't understand, that veterans deserved a good deal. The kids didn't really have a say, but they were definitely sour about losing their summer visits to the house.
So they brought a stranger into this really personal family space. Based on that connection, maybe a sense of obligation. That element of trust is important here.
They used the rent money for college tuition, so eventually they got over losing the summer weeks. But even though they trusted him, his parents would, periodically check in, but indirectly, through the landscapers.
Oh,
Just asking the landscapers to make sure he was okay, hadn't fallen or anything. The narrator admits, yeah, you could maybe call it invasive, but the guy was getting a great deal on rent, and his parents just needed that peace of mind.
It shows a level of care, maybe, but also keeps a distance. They didn't really know him well, despite trusting him with their home, their history.
And this is where things take a really dark turn. The landscapers start mentioning his behavior to the mom.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They'd see him just sitting out on the porch, staring at children playing down by the lake. They mention other things, too, things the narrator says he doesn't really feel comfortable repeating from the source material. Just predatory behavior.
That is incredibly chilling. The trusted tenant, the one given access to the family sanctuary, showing those kinds of signs. It exposes this horrifying risk they hadn't even considered.
The mom was horrified.
No.
Absolutely horrified. She pressured the dad intensely, big arguments, screaming about how irresponsible it was to have someone like that, potentially a predator, living in their house.
I could only imagine.
The dad finally gave in when the year-long lease was ending. He tried to end it gently, though, still respecting him as a veteran, maybe. He lied, said they needed to do major work on the house, no power or plumbing for months.
A white lie to avoid confrontation.
Yeah. The guy left without much fuss. Apparently the rent money wasn't that great anyway. The mom just wanted him out fast, even paid the landscapers extra to help him move his stuff. The narrator admits he was relieved too, said it just felt weird knowing someone so strange had unlimited access to their house, their memories.
So the immediate perceived threat was gone, but the unease must have lingered. And ending it with a lie, it doesn't really resolve the underlying issues, does it?
Not at all. So fast forward about a year after he left, the narrator's younger sister graduates. The family decides, hey, let's go back to the lake house for a proper summer trip. Celebrate.
Okay, trying to reclaim the space.
Yeah, and they'd recently gotten a dog, a black lab mix named Bear. His sister was super excited for Bear to see the lake house, so they drive up, arrive around sunset. The house isn't stocked with food or anything, so they decide to leave Bear inside while they quickly run into town for dinner.
Makes sense.
But just before they leave, he notices Bear acting kind of strange, ears perked up, pacing around the door. He just figured Bear was tired from the long car trip, didn't think too much of it.
The dog sensing something. It's almost a classic trope, but often based in reality. Their instincts pick up on things we miss.
They weren't gone long at all, maybe an hour, but when they got back, something felt seriously wrong the moment they walked in. He saw Bear first, lying at the foot of the stairs, sprawled out, panting really hard. His sister screamed. There was blood smearing the floor around Bear. He'd been stabbed.
Oh, that's horrific. Just horrific. The welcome home turning instantly into violence. The trauma must have been visceral.
His mom just immediately grabbed her phone, called 911. His dad ran to the kitchen, grabbed a big knife. The narrator followed his dad, and they started slowly searching the house, room by room, looking for an intruder.
Heart pounding, I imagine.
They get to the top floor. His dad suddenly stops him, puts a hand out, motions upwards. It took the narrator a second to see what his dad saw. The attic hatch.
The attic.
It was open, just cracked open, maybe an inch. And there was this faint flashlight glare shining down from the crack. The narrator said he was just petrified. Frozen.
The place of childhood games,
Yeah.
the place holding their grandparents' things, now the hiding spot for whoever attacked their dog. That contrast is deeply disturbing.
His dad, though, No hesitation. He just reaches up, yanks the hatch fully open, and scrambles straight up the ladder into the darkness.
Wow. Brave, or maybe just running on adrenaline.
The narrator didn't follow, too scared. He just stood there at the bottom of the ladder, listening, expecting sounds of a fight, shouting, something, but nothing. Silence. After a few moments, felt like forever probably, his dad climbs back down, and he seems surprisingly calm. He whispers to the narrator who it was, their old tenant, the veteran.
Oh my God. Not an unknown intruder. Someone they knew. Someone they trusted.
Yeah, and his dad seemed torn, like unsure what to do next.
That must have been a profound shock. The fear of a random intruder suddenly replaced by the horror of finding him there after everything, after stabbing their dog. That's a huge cognitive dissonance moment.
His mom came running upstairs then, heard what was happening, and just screamed when she found out who it was. His dad apparently wanted to just let the guy go, maybe out of that misplaced sympathy, but his mom had already called 911. They were on their way.
Understandable reaction from the mom.
When the police arrived, they went up to the attic, brought the tenant down. He looked in pretty great shape, apparently. The narrator could see his dad still felt sorry for him somehow. And then the police found something else, the family's house key, on the tenant, which made his mom even more furious because his dad had told her he'd changed all the locks after the tenant left. Obviously, he hadn't.
Another layer of betrayal almost, within the family this time.
Luckily, Bear survived. Needed stitches, serious injuries, but he pulled through. But despite everything, the staring, the breaking in, stabbing the dog, his dad refused to press charges, no matter how much his mom or sister begged him.
That's hard to understand from the outside.
It caused a massive family fight, one of the biggest they'd ever had. The narrator says he still, to this day, doesn't understand his dad's sympathy for the guy who did that. This all happened about a year ago, relative to when the story was told. They haven't been back to the lake house since.
No, I wouldn't think so.
He hates to admit it, he says, but the whole experience just completely tainted his childhood image of that house. He doesn't want to go back anytime soon, maybe never.
This story is just layered with violations, isn't it? There's the initial unsettling behavior, then the breach of trust, the violent return and attack on the dog. But then there's that deep fracture within the family, caused by the dad's reaction, his inability or refusal to see the man as just a criminal, that unresolved conflict, that lingering sense of betrayal. It's as much a part of the trauma as the break-in itself. The place isn't just tainted by the intruder, it's tainted by the family's inability to process it together.
Absolutely. Trust, violation, family conflict, the lasting scars. It's a really potent, disturbing mix. Okay, let's transition to the third story. This one happened just last summer. The narrator, Kevin, he was 20 at the time, he was hanging out with his friend James.
Okay.
James's family is, seriously wealthy. Dad's an IP lawyer for the government or something similar. They have properties everywhere, including this massive house on a large but pretty secluded lake. You can see other houses way across the water, but it's definitely a swim to get there.
Right, so a setting of privilege, security, which sometimes creates this false sense of being untouchable, maybe. The isolation feels like a good thing, a boundary, not a weakness.
Exactly. And James's parents were apparently never around, so he had unlimited access to this place, often invited friends up, threw big parties, no neighbors close enough to complain, usually.
Sounds like a typical scenario for a wealthy kid, maybe.
Kevin says there's just something about being out on that lake. It makes you feel kind of invincible, like you're in your own private world. Big, fancy houses line the shore, but most of them sit dark and empty most of the year, just vacation homes, barely used.
Creates an eerie backdrop, almost. All these empty shells.
But this particular night was different. It wasn't a party, just Kevin and James. More of a chill night. Kevin had just broken up with his girlfriend, needed some, quote, bro time, so they were just out on the dock, having some beers.
Okay, setting the scene.
He doesn't remember the exact time, but it was getting dark. He notices this light flickering way across the lake. At first, he thought maybe it was the sun reflecting off something, but it kept flashing, on and off. He pointed it out to James, and they just kind of got fixated on it, trying to figure out what it was.
This unexplained detail across the water.
Yeah.
It immediately grabs your attention, right?
Yeah.
Shifts the mood from just chilling to curious.
Yeah.
Maybe a little uneasy.
Totally. And at some point, they realize it's not just random flashing, it's following a pattern. 3 short flashes, 3 long flashes, 3 short flashes.
Wow.
James snaps his fingers, goes, "That's Morse code." Kevin's like, BS, calls him on it. But James is insistent, says that pattern means SOS.
SOS, okay.
Kevin pulls out his phone, looks it up real quick, and James is right. SOS. The flashing kept going for maybe another minute, then just stopped abruptly.
SOS. That's a universal distress signal. that instantly changes everything. It's not just a weird light anymore. It's potentially a serious emergency.
Yeah.
And the fact that it stopped, that's even more unnerving. Did they stop because help arrived or because something bad happened?
Exactly. They just kind of stared across the dark water. Kevin didn't know what to think. Could it be a prank, some kids messing around? But what if someone was in real trouble?
High stakes if it's real.
James immediately says, we should call the cops. Makes sense. But Kevin stops him. Reminds him they'd been drinking beers out on the dock. They weren't 21 yet, not legal. And worse, Kevin was actually fighting a DUI charge at the time.
Oh.
So the absolute last thing he needed was another run-in with the police. James wasn't thrilled about that, but Kevin was pretty firm. No cops. Not yet.
Okay, so that introduces a major constraint. Their own situation, the fear of getting into trouble, directly influences how they handle a potential life or death emergency for someone else.
Right. They try to think of a rational explanation for the light, besides something really serious, like a kidnapping or maybe someone fell and got hurt. They couldn't really come up with one, so they decided. They saw themselves as these adventurous, delinquent types. They should check it out themselves first.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Plan was, if it looked serious when they got there, then they'd figure out how to get help.
Risky plan.
So they go back inside the house. Apparently, James's younger brother was a weird kid, according to Kevin, and had a collection of switchblades just lying around his room.
Seriously?
Yeah. They grab a couple just for peace of mind, Kevin says. James suggests driving around the lake to the house, but Kevin immediately shoots that down because of his DUI risk.
Right.
Which left only one other option to get across the lake. They go out to the yard, find James's dad's kayak, and drag it down to the water.
Youthful bravado, maybe some alcohol, definitely poor judgment, taking knives, ruling out the safer option of driving, and this kind of misplaced need for adventure. It's leading them down a really dangerous path. Every decision seems to just compound the risk here.
They were actually laughing about it at first, shoving off in the kayak, enjoying the thrill, the adventure of it all. But the further out onto the dark lake they got, the quieter they became.
Reality is setting in.
Kevin thinks they both kind of realized how dumb this whole idea was, but neither one wanted to be the guy to chicken out and spoil the adventure. The sun was pretty much fully set now, harder to see. Not pitch black, he says. There was still some light from houses dotted around the lake, but it was definitely unsettling, being out there in a kayak in the dark.
Yeah, the initial excitement wears off fast when the conditions get real. That unease starts creeping in, the realization of just how isolated they are and how poorly planned this is.
As they get closer to the other side, the house comes into view. It's big, like the others nearby, but you could tell it was poorly maintained. Run down. The dock was half collapsed into the water.
Not exactly welcoming.
And the flashing light. It had stopped completely, which Kevin felt was a really bad sign. They couldn't tie the kayak to the broken dock, so they just kind of beached it up on the grassy yard. Adrenaline starts kicking in again. They look up at the dark house. The light had come from a second-floor window.
Okay, decision time.
James starts properly freaking out now. Really wants to leave, just paddle back and call the police from his house. But Kevin reminds him, dude, no cell service out here. They have to kayak all the way back just to get Wi-Fi at Jones's place to make a call.
Trapped by their earlier choices and the lack of communication.
So Kevin persuades him. Let's just take a quick look, see what's what. He compares it to exploring abandoned buildings they used to do, even while admitting how stupid this situation is. Says neither of them were exactly known for making smart choices back then.
That comparison to exploring abandoned buildings, maybe something thrilling in a more controlled way, it just highlights how badly they're misjudging this situation. This isn't just abandoned, it's sent out an SOS.
They decide not to go to the front door. Kevin thought that would be suicide. Smart move there, at least. They creep around the side of the house, testing windows, find one unlocked. They slip inside, trying to be silent.
Okay, they're inside now.
The house is empty, like completely stripped bare. No furniture, no junk, no signs anyone lived there. Just bare floors, bare walls. Eerie. And they move cautiously, find the stairs, start heading up towards the second floor where the light was.
Slowly making their way towards the source.
They reach the door of the room where they thought the light came from. They stop, listen at the door. Silence. Nothing. Kevin glances at James, gets a nod, and carefully pushes the door open.
Yeah.
The room is empty. Completely empty, except for one single thing. Sitting on the floor by the window, Kevin tiptoes over to get a better look. It's an old projector, pointing out the window.
A projector? Oh. That's the moment of realization, isn't it? They weren't walking into a rescue. They walked into a setup, deliberately constructed. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a lure.
Exactly. That's when the alarm bells just explode in his head. This is a trap. Someone set this up, intentionally. James must have realized it at the exact same second because Kevin just hears him take off, sprinting back the way they came, not even trying to be quiet anymore.
Pure panic.
Kevin turns and bolts right after him. As they're clattering down the stairs, he hears a door swing open behind them, up in the projector room, maybe a closet door, followed immediately by rapid, heavy thumping footsteps. Someone was chasing them down the stairs.
Oh my God. The shift from discovery to immediate physical threat. The trap wasn't just the lure, it was the pursuer waiting to spring it.
They bolt down the rest of the stairs, run back through the empty house towards the window they crawled through. James dives through it. Kevin is right behind him. As he's scrambling through the window frame, he can hear those footsteps pounding down the stairs, getting closer. He doesn't dare look back, just gets through the window and runs, trying to catch up to James, who's already down near the lake edge.
Running for their lives.
As Kevin runs towards him, he hears James curse loudly. And then Kevin sees why. The kayak. It's gone.
Whoa.
He turns, looks back towards the house, and from around the side of the building, a figure's running straight towards them. Kevin says he could barely process it. The person was fast, big, definitely an adult, not a kid messing around.
The final piece of the trap. Escape route gone. Pursuer closing in.
Kevin instinctively pulls out that switchblade he grabbed. Ready to fight, maybe? He expected James to do the same, but instead James just turns and jumps straight into the freezing cold lake. Clothes, shoes, everything.
Desperation.
Kevin doesn't even think. Sees James go in, he just follows him, jumps into the freezing water.
That forces a desperate, potentially lethal gamble. The freezing water versus the unknown pursuer. It's pure survival instinct kicking in at that point.
The water is freezing, absolutely brutal, he says. But he didn't care. Adrenaline just takes over. He just swam as fast as he possibly could, fighting the burn in his arms and legs. They swam towards the distant lights of James's house across the lake. Looked miles away. It felt endless.
An unimaginable swim.
But somehow, running purely on adrenaline, they made it. Dragged themselves up onto James's dock, freezing, shivering uncontrollably. Kevin thought he was getting hypothermia. They ran straight inside the house, locked every single door, and finally called the police.
Safe, but traumatized, I'm sure.
It took the police almost an hour to show up, which Kevin found outrageous given the situation. When they finally arrived, they went straight across the lake in their boat to investigate the house. They were over there for quite a while.
And what did they find?
When they came back, they told them exactly what Kevin said he half expected, but still found completely unbelievable. Nothing. No one there. They confirmed the house had been abandoned for years, no signs of any recent occupancy, no footprints inside, no gear, no projector, no belongings, nothing at all. Just an empty, derelict house.
Nothing but
Yeah.
the projector,
Yeah.
the footsteps, the person chasing them,
No.
the kayak.
Gone. Vanished. The police weren't happy with the boys, gave them the whole "why did you call us first" speech. James's parents were even angrier when they found out, threatened to sue the town, the police, for not investigating more thoroughly. Kevin says he wasn't invited back to the lake house after that night.
I can imagine.
As for Kevin, he still has no idea what really happened that night. Who was in that house? Why set up such an elaborate, terrifying trap? What was the plan if they hadn't managed to run and swim away, he says. He doesn't think he wants to know the answer. Most of his friends think it was a trap, yeah, but maybe the person just got cold feet at the last minute, didn't follow through. But Kevin really doesn't like to think about what could have happened if they had gone through with whatever they were planning.
What's just so terrifying about this account is how deliberate it all feels, how calculated. It wasn't random. It was designed specifically to exploit human curiosity, that urge to help. The sheer effectiveness of the trap is chilling enough, but then it's compounded by that eerie aftermath, the police finding absolutely nothing, no evidence. It just leaves a terrifying reality of how close they came to something unknown, something awful probably, with zero explanation, just gone.
Wow, these stories, yeah, they really stick with you, don't they? Just hearing them laid out like that, the threads connecting them, they become so clear. That sense of isolation, obviously, the unexpected appearance of a threat, right, where you're supposed to feel safe, that feeling of being specifically targeted. And in every single one, these lingering questions, the lack of clear, satisfying answers, it just leaves you hanging.
And if we, connect this to the bigger picture, These aren't just campfire stories, are they? They really highlight how incredibly fragile our perception of safety can be, especially when we're isolated.
Yeah.
The violation of a space that's meant for sanctuary, the lack of clear motive sometimes, the unresolved conflicts and trauma in other cases. These kinds of events leave a really deep psychological mark. They show how real life, these reported experiences, can contain elements that
Yeah.
they defy easy explanation, leaving the people who live through them just grappling with this terrifying unknown.
So, what does this all mean for you listening right now? Why do these kinds of accounts resonate so deeply with us? Is maybe that inherent vulnerability we feel in isolated places?
Could be.
Or is it the terrifying idea that a space you think of as safe, your home, your retreat, can actually be invaded? Or is it simpler? Maybe just the sheer terror of encountering something you just cannot understand or explain, something that leaves no trace, no motive, only questions. These accounts definitely leave you with this profound sense of unease, right? Those unanswered questions just kind of linger long after you've heard the story.
Which maybe raises an important thought for you to consider. Sometimes the most frightening thing isn't actually what you find or what happens, it's what you don't find. It's the lack of motive, the absence of evidence, leaving only that terrifying unknown.
Absolutely. A really chilling thought to end on. And to our listener who provided these fascinating and, yes, definitely unsettling source materials for us to talk about today, thank you. It was quite a journey through these.
Indeed. Thank
If
you.
you found our storytelling around these disturbing accounts intriguing, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Conan Horror Docs.
It helps others find these stories too.
It really does. Okay, everyone, stay safe out there.